It's good to be together. I'm Abby Tennis. I have the privilege and honor of serving as your lead minister here. I use she, her pronouns. I am wearing my pregnancy robe because my regular robe does not fit my giant body right now. So I'm wearing a big back floofy academic robe. It's making me feel very well educated. And a green and multicolored stole. I'm a white woman with an asymmetrical haircut. And Zoom is with us. So if you can't hear us on Zoom, Deb, I'm seeing you and nod your head, and Patricia, I'm seeing your thumbs up. So if something goes wrong, wave your hands wildly and we will try to get it fixed. But in the meantime, friends, have you heard of the Michigan fish test? Anyone? No. This was a psychological experiment first run by an American and Japanese psychology academic team, Richard Nisbet and Takahiko Masuda. And in it, a group of Japanese and American participants were briefly shown the same image of an aquarium and asked to describe what they saw. The Americans would say something like, I saw 3 big fish swimming off to the left. They had pink fins. They went for the biggest, brightest moving object and focused on it and its attributes. The Japanese in the study would start by saying, well, I saw what looked like a stream. The water was green. There were rocks and shells on the bottom. And there were 3 big fish swimming off to the left. In other words, the Japanese participants tended to look at the overall context of the image, the background, the colors, what grounded the image, what motion the image was trying to capture, and how the different parts of the image work together. The American participants tended to focus on the biggest fish in the picture and then describe what those big fish looked like. This experiment has been used to discuss the cultural differences in American and Japanese thinking, or maybe just Western and Eastern ways of thinking and viewing the world. American people tend to look at the heroes of the story, the biggest, flashiest characters, and not always pay as much attention to what's going on in the rest of the context. In other words, our culture tends to be individualistic. We tend to focus on the leaders. Japanese people tend to look at the way everything in the story is working together, including the biggest and flashiest characters, but first focusing on context and relationships. In other words, Japanese culture tends to be holistic and collectivistic, focused on how things are in harmony first. And I've thought about this experiment often since I first learned about it a number of years ago. I think I learned about it in business school, maybe. As an American and as a white American, no less, I've been trained to think like these American participants in the experiment think. When I look at a picture of an aquarium, my eyes go to the biggest fish. Does that resonate with you all? We pay attention to the big flashy things, and then we describe their pink fins. I do this first rather than describing the background and the relationships and the elements of the story first. And I'm not sure it would have occurred to me before I knew about this experiment that my way of seeing the aquarium was not the only way to see the aquarium. Now that I have a child, it is glaringly obvious to me how early we are trained to think like this in our culture. When I read American books to my 2-year-old, they most likely focus on the big things first. It's a story about sheep and cows. It's a story about the little red hen and the dog and the who else? The dog and the cat and the pig. And in my household, the stories are often about the important feminists of our time and what those feminists were like when they were little babies. But even so, it's focusing on the important feminists, not the day-to-day feminists that grace our pews here in this sanctuary. When Nova, my child, was a younger baby, he would sometimes notice these big things. He would sometimes notice the farm animals, for example, but his eyes would often go first to the rain in the story or to the stars in the story. And dutifully reading along with the text that I'm supposed to read as the mom, I would often redirect him to those big animals, the big characters, the little blue truck, the sheep that says Bob, baby Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And the same is true in real life. At our first visit to the zoo, thank you, Raymond, who gave us tickets to the zoo. One of our congregants works at the zoo. Nova cared about the little streams that flow through the zoo and the fountains. He did not care at all about the tiger that was like literally right above us. Didn't care at all. And the more I think about it, this focusing on the big fish first way of thinking causes difficulties in our lives and in our culture in general. Because the world is interconnected, right? All life is interconnected. And while there's value in the big fish, the balance of the ecosystem relies on the plants that bring oxygen into the water, on the motion of the currents, on the rocks that offer important minerals and camouflage to smaller creatures, and all of that microscopic interchange of life that goes unseen under the water. In our American human community, the news will often focus on that well-known elected leader, that famous movie star, when we know that social change only really happens when a large number of people are working together to build justice. Great art only happens when all of those names in small print at the end of the credits come together alongside that headlining movie star. And so when we pay too much attention to the big fish, we let things fall out of balance. When we only value the big fish, we feel our own contributions can be worthless, because more often than not, we are not the biggest fish. So our question to explore in this service today is how we can find grounding and purpose in our part of the work of our lives, in our part of the work of the world, no matter how large or small, no matter whether we are a tiny plankton or the biggest fish. This service is called Getting Out What You Put In. And some version of the quote, "You get out what you put into it in this world, or you reap what you sow," is attributed to everyone from Clint Eastwood to Jennifer Lopez to Hebrew and Christian scriptures, and all that is in between those people. It's been often tweaked to become a motivational quote to refer to the belief that if we think hard enough about what we want, it will come to us. It can also refer to the attitude that we bring to our relationships or interactions with other humans. But today, I'm thinking about the most basic everyday work version of this quote. If you want something to happen, you have to work for it to happen. If you want a better result, you have to put in more effort to making that result come into being. And I would bet that most of us see the wisdom and truth in this idea, at least in some sort of general way. But I would also bet that most of us come up against the limits of this idea when we are feeling discouraged that the work we're putting into something doesn't seem to be giving us the results we want. I'm feeling that with the tech team today. Sometimes the work of life is boring or too repetitive, or something goes wrong when we don't want it to go wrong and we don't know why. Sometimes no matter how hard we try, it can still feel like we're backsliding. Sometimes it feels like the only ones who matter are the biggest fish. And our tiny place as plankton or pebble at the bottom of the river is so inconsequential that we might as well give up. Anyone else out there feeling inconsequential in the face of all of the massive problems in the world? Anyone else feeling like you're so overwhelmed by the small duties in life, you're never able to actually make a big difference? None of us are alone in feeling disconnected from our ability to make a difference in this world. If you look around this sanctuary, you look around Zoom, there's a lot of heads that nod when we say, "Do you feel like this?" And so for those of us who are feeling discouraged or frustrated or bored or just like our lives are too small this morning, I wanted to offer 3 reminders that help me when I feel this way, 3 reminders that have come from conversations with some of you this week. And the first is this, that doing the work of the world that is common as mud, as March Piercy wrote in our reading this morning, Doing the work can be a doorway to the unexpectedly magic moments in life. Because unexpectedly magic moments are available to us at all times. And sometimes we're more open to them when the tasks that we are doing are simpler or are boring. And I'm talking about seeing a rainbow while taking out the trash on a wet Tuesday night. The rain might have kept you indoors that night if you didn't have to do the annoying, dirty, repetitive task of bringing the trash to curb for pickup. But because of the trash, you got to experience the rainbow. I'm talking about the laughter that we share with a stranger when you're both stuck in a long and slow moving line that you can't escape because you have to get through the DMV or whatever it is that you're stuck in a line for. I'm talking about the deeply meaningful friendships that sometimes begin just by sitting down next to each other at a church service or holding up a sign near each other at a protest. These moments can be mundane. Sometimes they're lonely moments. Sometimes they're frustrating moments, and yet it can be the experience itself of the ordinariness of these moments, the annoyance of these moments, or even the empty space that our loneliness brings to these moments that can open the door to the magic of connection and beauty. Doing the work, this work of the world that is common as mud, can be a doorway to unexpectedly magic moments in life. So that's the first thing I try to remind myself of when I'm feeling like this. The second is this, that there is a saying in Zen Buddhism, after the enlightenment, the laundry. Has anyone heard that saying before? Jack Kornfield wrote a book called After the Ecstasy, the Laundry. It means the same thing. It means that when we accomplish big things, whether we're talking literally about spiritual enlightenment, or we're talking about reaching an important justice victory together, our lives will still continue on after those big achievements. And it is the work of being human to continue to incorporate the lessons that we find in our lives into this always imperfect experience of living. Because we know that there's no real, and then they lived happily ever after. Even after the dragon is slain, we still will continue to learn new lessons in life and need to apply them in order to grow as people and grow in happiness. After the enlightenment, the laundry also reminds us that it is in fact our daily life that is our best and endless primary teacher in life. It's not the peak experiences of life. It's not the biggest fish moments of life that teach us how to live better, or not only those moments at least. It's this daily experience, the daily experience of struggle and liberation, the daily experience of love and loneliness, the daily experience of connection with others and taking pride in a small task well done. It's these experiences that help us develop as spiritual beings. So whenever I do the laundry, I remind myself, after the enlightenment, the laundry, there's no escaping it, and it is part of the enlightenment itself. Here's the third thing I remind myself when I am feeling frustrated. The story goes like this. One day, a woman was walking along a beach when she noticed a child hurriedly picking up and gently throwing things into the ocean. Gently but forcefully, if you can imagine that. Approaching the child, the woman said, "Hello, little one, what are you doing?" And the child replied, "Throwing starfish back into the ocean. The surf is up and the tide is going out, and if I don't throw them back, they'll die." And the woman laughed to herself and said, "Don't you realize that there are miles and miles of beach and hundreds, maybe thousands of starfish? You can't make any difference." And after listening politely to the woman, the child thought and then bent down and picked up another starfish and threw it gently but forcefully into the surf. And then smiling at the woman, the child child said, I made a difference to that one. I made a difference to that starfish. And then it was the woman's turn to just stand there for a moment, look down. And then she too bent down and picked up a starfish and flung it as far and as gently as she could into the waters. We may not actually be able to make a difference to every single one, but we can make a difference to that one. There are many frustrations of our lives, my friends, and we know that there's many frustrations even in this religious community. We're going to be talking about budget challenges that we're facing as a congregation in the coming weeks. I think many of us feel that our big mission of awakening love and justice in our lives and in the world is both possible, but incredibly hard to accomplish. We're talking big picture about the vision for the future of our spaces together, knowing that we will need to raise a lot of money if we want to actually make that vision come into being. But if you ask anyone who has called this spiritual home their spiritual home for a while, I bet that they will tell you that it is in offering something of ourselves to the shared work of community here that helps us feel a part of that community, that helps us to become known, that helps us to allow our hearts open to vulnerability. And ultimately, the more we put into this community, the more we receive from it. And so if you're feeling frustrated in every other area of your life, or even just a couple of them, but you want to make a difference here, I hope that you'll join us after this service at the Involvement Fair and find something as simple as coming a few minutes early to offer programs as our ushers do in the morning, or joining one of our musical groups, or something bigger picture where you have a special skill that you could offer to a community like this. The work of the world is common as mud, Marge Piercy says. Botched, it smears the hands and crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well done has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn. They're put in museums, but you know that they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry and a person for work that is real. You're not alone in feeling disconnected from our ability to make a difference in this world. If you look around, you know that none of us is alone when we feel inadequate or too small or just frustrated. But if you look around in this space, in the Zoom room, in the world around you, and you take a moment to think about what might be possible when 150 people gathered like we are gathered this morning, or just the members of your workplace, just the people on the bus with you, all of those people who feel like they cannot do enough as individuals come together, they can create a great deal of change in this world. Doing the work of life can be a doorway to the unexpected magic moments in life. After the enlightenment comes the laundry. Our daily lives are our primary spiritual teachers. We know we may not be able to save every single starfish, but we can make a difference to that one. My friends, may we come together and may we make a difference. Amen. Blessed be.
Hi, I'm Reverend Hannah Capaldi.
And I'm Reverend Abby Tennis. We are the ministers at the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia, where our mission is to awaken love and justice in our lives and in the world.
We're so grateful that you watched, and we hope that the sermon connected with your soul.
We also want to invite you to join us for a live worship service every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can always find the link to that service on our website at www.philauu.org. In these services, you'll hear words like you've just heard, and you also get a chance to greet one another, pray together, sing together, and we even hold a virtual coffee hour after services to get a chance to greet some new and old friends.
If you want to support the mission of this community and you feel moved to give, you can do so by going to the website that Reverend Abby just mentioned. You can find that link below, or you can text 215-709-5095 and follow the prompts to give.
If someone in your life needs to hear these words today, we encourage you to share this video. And again, thank you so much for watching.
We hope to see you soon.